Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
Federal investigators say online scam networks operate like organized enterprises, spanning platforms, payment systems, and even countries. A recent operation worked to disrupt that ecosystem all at once, not just in individual accounts. Joining me now to explain how that works is Mike Sweeney, Director of Preemptive Cyber Defense at Silent Push. Mike, it's great to have you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, Darren.
We're going to talk about a recent U.S. Department of Justice joint operation called Operation Disruption Week. It happened back in May, and the report is that it took down 1 million accounts tied to scam networks targeting Americans. From your vantage point, what has changed here? What kinds of scams are these that can now operate at that level of scale?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. So these scams are what you would have seen in the past. They're romance scams. They're impersonation of law enforcement using deep fakes in order to get you to think that something has happened to a loved one. There's a lot of cryptocurrency investment fraud, different investment schemes that people who are trying to make a quick buck fall into to try to get themselves some financial security. And I think that what really has changed and why the Scam Center Strike Force was stood up is because it just has been industrialized to the level that it has really affected a large amount of people globally. They have, again, just found safe havens within different countries to be able to build out a robust infrastructure physically and get a bunch of workers there and start just, again, scaling up these type of scams. And so the Disruption Week was about going out there and saying, hey, for all those people that have been scammed, you're not unseen, and that we're going to go out there and we're going to start hitting away at these different locations where all these different scammers are being housed to steal money from us.
I just want to read some statistics from that report because I think it's mind-boggling. 1.4 million fraudulent accounts, pages, and groups on Facebook and Instagram, blocking 20,000 Microsoft accounts, disconnection of thousands of Starlink terminals, and private companies froze over 3.8 million in cryptocurrency. This is massive. As you were saying, what infrastructure does it take to operate at that level?
It takes these compounds. They're building out these large buildings that have a massive amount of infrastructure there, like you would think it for a corporation headquarters. And they're setting them up right over the border from Thailand in different countries like Myanmar and Cambodia. And they're sort of falling within a gap of jurisdiction where certain governments aren't capable of enforcing or unwilling to enforce against them. And so Thailand and other countries, the US, are having to step in and find ways to sort of resolve this via sanctions, via international pressures, and via these takedowns, utilizing industry and their access to all the different services that these malicious actors are using to pull money from folks. And so from there, that's really where my company Silent Push had to play, right? We work mostly on cyber threat intelligence and design, and so we helped facilitate detecting some of these operations for that takedown, and the locations for some of these takedowns and arrests. So yeah, it's absolutely massive. Those numbers are this is just a subsection. We focused Southeast Asia within this disruption event, but it's a global problem. It's interconnected. It's an international problem. And one of the stats I've read recently from GASA.org was that it's into trillions now in damages, as large as maybe third in global economies compared to us in China. So it's gotten to a point that we really do need international involvement, local involvement, and a a very holistic approach to this, because it's not just Americans and Europeans getting harmed in this. These scam centers, they also do a lot of people trafficking. They exploit the folks to even get to work with them. So they put out job ads and they lure them over, and these scam compounds are prisons essentially. They can't get out. And so it's so many levels of wrong, really. I mean, you're thinking of sort of the phone calls and the virtual scamming, but also the victims there that are forced to do the jobs in the first place. It's a real terrible scene. And so they've found ways to trick people on all sorts of levels to build out this criminal industry that's sitting in these haven countries.
Mike Sweeney is a former NSA cyber and intelligence analyst and now director of Preemptive Cyber Defense at Silent Push. Mike, not only did you describe the actual operation there, but the complexity of the takedown approach, international collaboration, government and industry collaboration. What does it really take to put together a team that can cross all of those boundaries and effectively operate?
It takes a lot of planning, right? But really, it takes understanding the different pain points that you can push on these organizations and the supporting organizations to get the behavior to stop, right? And so as you look across industry and governmental partnerships, you have to look at where we can actually apply pressure by taking away the finances, by creating sanctions, by exposing the problem to particular governments, leveraging governments that have agreements with the countries that are havening this type of activity, and understanding that the organization itself that is conducting these operations to try to go upstream, right? You don't want to, like I said, the workers themselves are often victims, and so the approach of just arresting everyone that's there or just bombing these locations or something, that's sort of out of the picture, right? So you have to sort of take these nuanced approaches of drilling in and sort of getting to the head of these organizations, right? And so I think that's why it's so complex and why we need to bring in as many partners as possible for this. It's massive. We can't let it scale outside of the scope of what we can enforce globally, right? So it's scaled massively. And with that, we've just noticed that it's not just a government problem. It's not just one government problem. It's not just one sort of isolated geographical region. It's a very complex issue with a lot of money involved, a lot of damages being done, and something has to be done about it. So yeah, that's kind of that's why we've kind of approached it the way it's being approached.
And you're working on the analytics side of this. How do you actually find these networks in the first place to then begin to strategize on how to take them down?
So it's often because of how large these organizations are and how large the scam operations are that, just like in a regular industry, things get outsourced. And when things get outsourced, fingerprints are put on things or specific techniques are isolated out, right? And so when the scams have gotten to the state that they've gotten, there's patterns that emerge. That's essentially how you highlight it. You can find commonalities, high commonalities across all this different scam infrastructure and detect it and take it down. And then hopefully, because of the way they've set up their infrastructure, hopefully that infrastructure sits in a particular country that can enforce those type of takedown mechanisms. So again, just like having someone in a particular region that it's hard to arrest them, there is also virtually places where it's hard to take down their infrastructure or to stop the virtual aspect of it. So that's essentially what we do. Is we not only can look across their what are called TTPs, their tradecraft, and then from that you can establish patterns and do large detection across it. And then from there you supplement that virtual takedown with arresting individuals on top of freezing and removing finances, on top of political support, and then any other extra pressure point that we could expose and push ultimately to hopefully collapse the system that is currently attacking everybody right now.
It sounds like a never-ending game of whack-a-mole.
So whack-a-mole is like I would say it's more of a game of sort of a labor of love, because, whack-a-mole is if the repetitive process was not something that you can see the benefit of that repetitive action, right? I want to just always sort of highlight that there's a very big moral issue here that is being addressed. It is the fact that we are telling these organizations that you can't get so big that we won't do anything about it, that if it gets too complicated that we can't create a plan in the scenario to harm you and stop you from exploiting folks. And at the end of the day, when everyone's sitting in their house and they want to feel safe when they pick up their phone or when they turn on their TV or use their computer, it is important that the different governments and industry are doing something about these actions, right? And so the whack-a-mole is sort of like a statement that I'm always pushing back against, because it is just this repetitive action that the next mole is going to pop up, right? And I don't believe that, because another thing is that it sort of defeats the nuance that this is an evolution. Every time we do a takedown operation, every time we plan, we pull in industry, we attack different pressure points. These are evolutions, and every operation, if you look at it close enough, it is moving us closer and closer to our goal of being able to stop this type of activity at this scale.
Mike Sweeney is a former NSA cyber and intelligence analyst and director of Preemptive Cyber Defense at Silent Push. Mike, I appreciate you not only sharing the operation with us, but bringing us back to the Moral Center. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
We'll post this interview at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Listen to the Federal Drive on your schedule. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.